Okay, so let's get going, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And very warm welcome to our very special Connections Cafe. So we're doing something a little bit different today. And this Connections Cafe will be themed around local and transport authority engagement. For those of you who don't know me already, my name is Rebecca and I work in the SME development team at the Connected Places Catapult. So some very quick housekeeping before we begin the webinar today. So during the event, your microphone will be muted and your video will be disabled. However, you will have the opportunity to ask questions to all of our speakers using the Q&A function located on the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen. So before we move on to looking at the agenda for today, if it's okay, I'd really like to ask you guys to complete a very, very quick poll. So at CPC, we really want to be able to start holding physical events again. But of course, we will only do so with the proper safeguards in place. And we'd like to gauge whether our community would be happy and comfortable with beginning to attend physical events again. So on your screen, you'll now see a poll regarding attending physical events. So if you could complete this, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, so here is I'll just complete my poll. Here is the agenda for today. Please, Nick, if you don't mind. Thank you. So hopefully you can all see that. The reason we have made this Connections Cafe a little bit different, and we're not inviting SME pitches as we usually would do. At the Catapult, we're getting an awful lot of inquiries from our SME community, asking how they go about engaging with cities or councils or local authorities, transport authorities, etc. And they say, I've got this most amazing innovation, and it's going to change the way that people move around a city. But they really just have to be able to engage a city in demonstrating that technology. So in the development of sort of new products and services, the piloting and the demonstration is absolutely critical if you're going to be able to gain much needed sort of market traction. So today, you'll hear from some great speakers from local and transport authorities on how they currently work with small businesses and how they onboard new innovative SMEs. And after all of our speaker sessions, there will be a panel discussion where you will be able to ask direct questions on anything you like, but really on the mechanics of how to engage with local authorities. So what is that gateway to entry? So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our first speaker, a long-time friend of the Catapult, Jeff Snelson, who is the Director of Strategy and Futures at Milton Keynes Council. So Jeff is unfortunately unable to join the panel discussion later, but if you have any questions for Jeff, we can take some after his speaking slot. So Jeff, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca, and good morning, everyone. As Rebecca said, I'm Jeff Snelson. I'm Director of Strategy and Futures at Milton Keynes Council. So that's a bit of an unusual role in local government, I guess. My main role is leading a long-term strategic plan for the growth of the city through to 2050. That includes some major projects such as a new mass rapid transit system for the city and a new technology university in partnership with Cranfield University. I also lead on economic development and our smart city programme. So that's delivered over the years a number of projects in big data and electric and autonomous mobility. So just as an example of, I guess, of how we've worked with companies is, and it's very topical, is the Starship robot delivery service that operates in the city. So that's a service that employs sort of what you might call cool box size robots that trundle around on on pathways and so on across the city, and deliver goods from local supermarkets using an app direct to households. And it covers around about a half of the city's area now. And that's a good example of something that's been in gestation for a number of years. And when they first came to us, we thought it looked a bit wacky, but hey, let's give it a go. And what we did there was provided a very enabling environment in which we supported them looking at all those things like highways regulations and so on, and made it very easy for them to sort of trial and deploy their commercial products. So, generally it's not about us funding things or whatever, it's about using our powers as a local authority or helping provide access to the local environment is usually where we can be most helpful. And another good example is we've recently, a couple of weeks ago, launched the UK's first commercial electric scooter hire scheme. So again, that's another example where we were prepared to take a few risks and provide an enabling environment. But in terms of some practical immediate opportunities, I guess the most significant is our current 5G technology program. So we're leading a consortium that's deploying 5G technology and a data hub facility for the city. And members of that consortium include BT, Tech Mahindra, who are based in the city, the Open University, the Connected Places Catapult, and the Satellite Applications Catapult. And that's a project's got a value of around £10 million, and it's funded by the partners and our local enterprise partnerships. So that's the South East Midlands LEP. And the network is designed to give coverage across about 70% of the urban area and cover key sites such as motorway junctions, the hospital, railway stations, and so on. So trying to give a very diverse range of locations that might be appropriate for different kinds of applications. And it also will cover a number of rural communities. And it's designed exclusively for research and development purposes. We're working on an extension of the project that will provide for commercial deployment. But at the moment, it is very much about sort of R&D, and it's looking at applications and trials across three core theme areas, which are mobility, health and well-being, and low carbon energy. And we're delivering the network now. The masts have been through planning, had a little bit of fun with some of that, and they're being installed sort of right now. And alongside the communications network, we're installing a data hub that can pull together and store data from sensor feeds across the city and so on, obviously linking into the communications network. And it provides sort of curation and quality assurance of the data and easy access to that data for innovators. And the program's working actively with the SME community and our partners through a dedicated business accelerator program that aims to support startups and SMEs. And as Rebecca was saying, the Connected Places Catapult, we always work very closely with them, and they're acting as the business growth partner within the consortium. And the accelerator program has been launched and is live, so details can be found on the CPC's website. And we've had about 20 or so applications to date from SMEs, and the application window is still open. And towards the end of September, we'll be running an introductory event to the accelerator program. So that'll be a good opportunity to sort of log in and get a feel for that. And if you look on the Connected Places Catapult's website, their events website, you can see there's a tab there for the event that you can register your interest in. Not going to say too much more now because, as Rebecca said, I'm unfortunately unable to join. I'm also responsible for our COVID economic recovery programme, so I've got to go off and host a big meeting for that shortly. But I thought I'd not talk so much now, but just give a bit of opportunity to answer any questions you might have before I have to disappear. So thanks very much.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Jeff. Can I just say a warm welcome to everyone who's joined in the last 5 minutes or so. Jeff, I just had a question, if that's okay, on the 5G accelerator. Could I just ask you, are there specific challenge areas or themes within the accelerator that you're particularly interested in hearing sort of from applications or for people interested in built environment or critical infrastructure, or is it just very much an open call?
Well, there are areas we're particularly interested. I mean, we don't discount people that come forward with ideas that we haven't thought about, because my experience is that a lot of clever people and innovative people out there that so you don't want to rule things out. But around mobility, we're particularly interested in pulling together data about movement and so on, and creating applications that can help people plan deployments of mobility solutions, or provide good information to people that want to take a journey, for example, and how best to do that, and linking into our urban traffic management system that we have as a council. So looking at ways we can optimize that data, I guess. And the health and well-being stuff, we've actually got the NHS working with us on that, and we're looking at, so you might expect, sort of remote sort of applications, including sort of emergency applications, whereby someone might want to deliver, I don't know, treatment, a remote application, and use a high quality video feed to be able to access expert advice and so on maybe back from the hospital or somewhere like that. That's a little bit more closed, I guess, because it's quite specific.
Yeah.
And then the energy stuff is mostly about allowing consumers and businesses understand how best to deploy sort of energy saving solutions, CO2 reduction solutions, and helping affect behaviour change and adoption of good practices.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. And the accelerator, could you just briefly touch on the stage of development of the technology? So are you looking for TRL, quite a low TRL, or does it have to be slightly higher? A sort of a proof of concept or like demonstration stage?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but generally we're interested in anything at any stage. So if you've got something you think is a compelling idea and that is able to progress, then we'd always prefer to hear about that rather than rule something out.
Lovely. So we have a question, if that's all right, Jeff, from on the Q&A. Can companies overseas apply?
I hadn't really thought about that. I would think yes, if it's something that they're looking to deploy in the UK, and obviously we'd be interested in something that has got the potential to grow, the economy and jobs in the UK. But so we're always interested in hearing about applications that might add to our understanding and integrate with other approaches and services. So I'll say yes for now.
Yeah, and I would say yes as well. So from my experience, we all of the Catapults programs, we always welcome international applications. Okay, I don't think there are any, unless anyone else has got any questions. Please put them in the Q&A now. Oh, yeah, we've got another one. From our friend Alex from Level 5 Suppliers. Hi, Alex. I hope you're well. Alex says, what funding, or is there any funding available? And is it on an equity or non-equity basis?
Yeah, there's no funding available. I mean, the main support is through access to the environment, the innovation environment, and the sort of support that you'll get through from the Catapult and sort of business support expertise and so on. So it's more about sort of coaching, development, access to the environment, and also access to some of the partners, because we found, for example, that being able to work alongside some of these major corporates gives people sort of opportunities to get involved and understand how things might scale up and be deployed sort of more widely.
Lovely. Okay, and if it's okay, can you just take one more question, Jeff?
Yeah, sure.
If you don't mind, thank you. So there's just a kind of general question from R. Quinn saying, so generally speaking, what is the best way of getting in touch with either you or with the transport department in the council if an SME does have a really interesting product that they'd like to discuss with you?
Yeah, well, people can always just email me directly. I'm always happy to have approaches, and I think you're going to provide details after the event.
If that's okay with you, absolutely. Yeah, we will.
Happily enough. I mean, within my team, I've got someone who's a dedicated lead for transport innovation in particular. So generally, when people approach me, I'll put them in touch with Brian, and he'll just check out the idea and see if there are opportunities to work with us on any existing programs, or sometimes it might be interesting enough for us to want to meet and have a good look at it.
Great. I'm so sorry. I did say that was the last question, but we've had a very interesting one come in from Zoe, who works for Hitachi. So Zoe's saying that is the accelerator only for SMEs? And I would say yes, it is only for SMEs. However, if Hitachi are interested in collaborating in some way with the 5G team, then please do get in touch, because I'm sure if you have some interesting ideas in the 5G space, it would be fantastic to sort of incorporate them into the program and see how we can get Hitachi to actually work with some of the SMEs in the program.
Yeah, and we ourselves are interested in, we're developing ideas for extensions to the program. We've got some very, exciting ideas for how we might push it on. So, having got the infrastructure in place, sort of very interested in talking to people about how they might sort of fit in with that and add to that.
And thank you so much, Jeff. So I will let you go. Thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it enormously, as always. Thank you. If this was a live event, we'd all clap, but I'll clap for you.
I'm here.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so who have we got next? We have John Paddington. So John is the Innovation Integration Lead in the public sector team at Transport for West Midlands.
Yeah, that's
Thank
pretty
you,
much
John.
it. Right, okay. I'm going to have my video on, but one of the things I found about working from home, and it's kind of random being in the centre of Birmingham, is that my internet isn't great. So I may have to take the video off. It doesn't work well with the screen sharing. One of the things I wanted to say was actually these are always really fascinating to actually hear about what other authorities are doing. So there's a lot of what we're doing, and I'll touch on around 5G. Thanks very much to what Jeff was talking about and some of the questions. Just a bit of background about me. So I worked for about 14 years at ACOM, and I've worked for about 14 months at a SME startup Digital. So if you've got questions about SMEs, private sector participation and stuff, I have some understanding of that. I also know the pain, what works well, what doesn't work well. So hopefully this will help. What I wanted to talk about really is a bit of background on what we're doing in the West Midlands, some practical advice, some pointers on opportunities as well. And there's links in the slides. My slides will be shared, so don't worry about having to copy things down. So you'll have a copy of all of this afterwards. Let me start. Okay, I always start with this slide because I think it's quite an important one from my point of view. So I work for Transport for West Midlands, but we are part of the West Midlands Combined Authority. So ultimately, I report to Andy Street as the Mayor of the West Midlands, and that means that we have more than just a transport focus. Health, economy, and prosperity are all just as important. So actually, all the things we're looking to do are to enable that. So actually involving SMEs, involving local companies is very important to us. The health side of things is also important. It's interesting for me as well because of being in that part of that wider organisation. For instance, I get the COVID briefings. We've had briefings from like the public health director. So there's a lot more wider aspects at the moment. If you ever listen to Andy Street, he's very, very proud of the West Midlands, and he has loads of slides like this. I would have showed you a lot more if I had more time, but I don't really want to take too much time because I've only got 10 minutes. One of the things we like to note is that the West Midlands has a huge trade surplus. So we're one of the few areas in the country actually that has a trade surplus with both China and America. That is a opportunity and a challenge because that does mean that we are quite reliant on manufacturing, automotive particularly. But some of the other facts we like to quote is Birmingham's, I think, the youngest city in Europe. So we have the youngest population. So we are forward thinking. Is people out losing audio? Or is that just?
Oh, you're okay, John.
There's a couple of questions saying that there's a couple of people saying they've lost audio. Let me turn my camera off. What does that think? I'll carry on.
It's already off.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing is that we have the region has been one major event, and I think there's a major vote of confidence in it. So in 2021, Coventry will be hosting the UK City of Culture. We're also hosting the Commonwealth Games. I've put 2 links on there because there's lots of funding and opportunities to get involved in there. So do go on the websites, have a look, see what's going on. City of Culture is particularly interesting because we have been looking at how we can do things with 5G and transport, to particularly with a cultural angle of things. I also like to show these slides. There's this slide and the next slide. So if I you can see, hopefully you can see the travel time to Birmingham. Alex, I will share them as clickable links. So I haven't seen the questions as they come up. What it's showing is actually that these are the different sort of journey times as people can get into the city. Effectively, what's happened since 2006, 2016 is actually the amount of people that can get into the centre of Birmingham in a reasonable time has reduced. So we realised we had to do something different. We had, as you can see, some of the stats on those slides. And one of the things that we wanted to do that was different, and we were proud to do, was that we are one of the first regions with a local industrial strategy. So if you go onto the website, the link's at the bottom, that covers all the different areas that the combined authority is interested in. So that includes transport, technology, manufacturing. Often, if you want to pitch to us, if you tie into the local industrial strategy, that's a very good start. So please have a read of that. It does set out what we want to achieve and our objectives, so that helps
John.
position.
John, I'm so sorry. That was a very critical piece of information there about how you want to pitch, but we lost you. So could you repeat that?
Okay, yeah, no problems. So yes, so the local industrial strategy outlines the region's priorities for technology, so transport, professional services. There's a link at the bottom of the slide. If you have a look at that, the actual strategy itself, it's a bit like the national one. It will set out the priorities, but that also helps companies wanting to work with us, because actually, if you can say, "Oh, I help you meet that objective," we're going to be very interested in it. If my audio keeps being a problem, I'll tell her off my phone. But do let me know if it is becoming a problem. We were lucky, we were the first region in the country to be awarded a future transport zone. So we have 22 million from the government over 4 years to deliver a series of different objectives. I won't go into too much detail here. At the end, I've got a link to our website, and actually we've got a brochure which doesn't list out exactly all the different things we're looking to do and what opportunities there are for business, but to give you sort of feel sort of different things we're looking to do. So one of which is trials around demand responsive transport, so looking at specific use cases. So for instance, at the airport, we are really interested in how we can improve our modelling and understanding customers. So looking at sort of segmentation models, how we build new digital twins, looking at data as examples. One of the things we're also doing is we have funding from CCAV and Innovate UK to develop Midlands future ability. So 300 kilometres of instrumented roads for trialling connected autonomous vehicle services. Now, a lot of them so a lot of this is also a combination of technologies, but actually we also want to say that we want to focus on actual real life testing. So we are a region of 2 million people. So it's not just the technologies. If you want to trial products or services, do come and talk to us. And if you talk to Zenzik, which organises a lot of these things, they will help promote that to you. Another aspect that we're also really interested in is energy. So we're doing a lot of work around electric vehicles, charging, hydrogen, and we have basically another part of the organisation called Energy Capital, looking at that part. I have seemed to have dropped a slide. I will talk about something, but I've actually deleted one of my slides. I was going to have a slide about Westminster 5G, which ties into what Jeff said. So we also have funding from Department of Culture, Media and Sport, particularly to develop a transport programme. What we're looking to do is create sort of use cases and short-term trials. I will send out some more details about this when my updated slide deck, there is some briefing sessions in the next couple of weeks about that. So that's match funding. That's an opportunity effectively if you've got something between, I think, TRL 4 to 6 and you want to trial it, it must use 5G. We'd be very interested to do that. And this is the kind of thing where actually some regional collaboration could work well. So for instance, you could trial it with us, we could help fund it, and then you might want to then take it to Milton Keynes and use their testbed, for instance. One of the things I just wanted to sort of end on, and I know it's always a question for SMEs, is how do we work with us? And this is also based on a lot of my experience. A lot of the challenges for us, we have to follow procurement rules. So depending on the value of what you want to do, or what we want to do, more importantly, we have to go for different approaches. So smaller things we can do for mini competitions. So generally, if it's up to anything up to a few 100,000, we can do for a sort of effectively getting a few quotes or a mini competition. If we go above 200,000, we have to go for a very complicated EU compliant procurement approach. We also tend to use Crown Commercial Service frameworks, so they're also worth looking at because they can be an easier way into local authorities. But we have been actively looking at ways we can encourage innovation. So we actively look to get involved in UK competitions. So the 5G one I talked about earlier was actually something that's being run by Innovate UK, but there's other opportunities that sometimes are easier. So for instance, if we have suppliers that already work for us, partner with them because you can use like the existing contracts. A lot of our transport services are provided by private sector partners, so particularly the buses. So actually, if you're looking to something in the West Midlands, that can be easier because the private sector partners aren't as constrained as we are around procurement rules. And then that was pretty much it. Basically, just what I wanted to just end on really was, if you've got a good idea, come and talk to us. Please come and talk to us first, actually. Generally, the earlier the better, because we can help steer you. What's the best way of doing things? Generally, when things come to procurement, it becomes a lot more difficult. So that's it for me. And hopefully those links at the bottom will be useful.
Lovely, thank you so much, John. There's obviously a massive amount going on there. So the message is, as you ended on there, if you have an idea, please reach out to John or the team at TFWM. So it doesn't look like we have. Oh yes, hang on 1 second. If the audio wasn't great there, so if you'd like to kind of pick up with John afterwards, if you could just please complete the poll that Nick's put on the screen. And we do have a couple of questions, but if it's okay, I'm going to move on to the next speaker and we will answer those questions in the panel discussion. So Jeff Ogden is joining us now. Jeff is Consultancy and Corporate Services Director at Transport for Wales. Thank you, Jeff.
Good morning, Bore da. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, everybody. So I recognise we've got a few minutes to tell you about quite a lot of things that are going on with innovation. So I thought it'd be useful as a start just to give a little bit of background about Transport for Wales, and then talk very much about some good work that's been going on in the rail side of things with the team in rail services. So just as a bit of background on what Transport for Wales is. So Transport for Wales is a company that's wholly owned by the Welsh Government. So we started very much as an advisor to the Welsh Government on the procurement of the current rail franchise, which started back in October 2018. But our scope does continue to grow as we aim to become the transport integrator for Wales. If you're interested in some more background on what we are, what we've been doing, what we're planning on doing, then our annual report is available on our website, and the link to our website is in the middle there, and I think these slides are going to be shared afterwards after the event. Our procurement itself was pretty innovative, actually. It featured competitive dialogue, which was done for the first time in the rail franchising procurement across the UK, and we actually set a context which brought together track and train for the South Wales Metro. So now we have, through that procurement, as an operator and development partner. And earlier this year, actually, we took over some of the railway asset in South Wales. So our aspiration would be that we can use that in an innovative way, both through the solution that Keolis Amy brought to the table as a successful bidder, but also in terms of test bed for further innovation too. So our operator and development partner, as I've mentioned, is Keolis Amy, and they operate as Transport for Wales Rail Services. So that's the last part on that slide there. And the following slides that I'm going to major on through this presentation actually focus on the excellent work that they've been doing with the Innovation Lab, which was one of the commitments made in the bid. So Barry Lloyd and Mike Davis, I'm not sure whether they've joined us today, but they may be in the audience, and they've made some really great progress over the last year or so. And what you're going to hear is down to them and their team. So in reality, I guess the lab is probably the main way for SMEs to engage with TFW on the innovation agenda at the moment. We do have other ways to engage with SMEs, perhaps more in the more traditional procurement way, and the constraints that we've got are not dissimilar to what we heard from a minute ago with from John. So our aspiration is to continue to develop our approach and become more SME ready and more SME friendly as we continue to grow the scope of our influence and services. Just as a bit of background, I guess key challenges for us beyond rail, I just tried to think of a few that we've got at the moment. Things like the digital delivery of infrastructure, building digital twins and information management, commercial models for infrastructure funding, not being so reliant on public sector funding for all of our infrastructure. So something a little bit different there, not necessarily a product, but ways that we can find different routes to funding. Big challenge at the moment around passenger flows and modelling. We do have an analytical unit where we've got modelling capability. We're building transport models across the whole of Wales. Some of the challenges are actually understanding passenger flows and the growing back after COVID-19. What does that mean for us? Smart ticketing, the way we can deliver that across modes. I'd use smart ticketing in the loosest sense of the word, but actually making it a really friendly environment for people to travel, get the right information, joined up ticketing, joined up fares, approach, etc. And another thing is that Keolis Amy actually in their bid brought tram train as a technical innovation for the provision of the metro in South Wales, and we're looking at how we might use that sort of technology more widely across Wales to perhaps create some different opportunities in terms of accessibility. So the Innovation Lab, as I say, I won't cover all of the detail in these slides, but they are being made available after the event. So just all the content will be there. So the lab that Rail Services have been running has been, there's been one cohort so far, and they've just started the second cohort very recently. So the aim is to find 8 to 12 early to mid-stage startup scale-ups and give them access to an accelerator program. The participants get an opportunity to collaborate with mentors across the innovation sector and Transport for Wales Rail. There are 2 intakes per year. The latest one, which is being done in a virtual way, has just started back at the end of August. And the aim is, the roadmap for each startup is to get demo day ready with the minimum viable products that can be shared. So cohort 1 finished with a virtual demo day earlier in the summer, following their participation in the 12-week program, and there were 3 winners. The 3 winners are outlined on this slide. If I focus on the Clever City winner, they were awarded £15,000 to implement their state-of-the-art smart parking solution. So generally the background to that, or a bit of background to that, 85%, they had some research that 85% of the public agreed that they would be more likely to use the train if they could see unoccupied car parking spaces digitally at stations, for example. So they developed AI, information provision, and an app to provide that solution to do that. So those 3 winners are now exploring a proof of concept with the team and are in the process of looking at how and where their solutions can be deployed. Excuse me. And although there were the 3 winners, further proof of concepts are also being explored with some of the others too. Cohort 2 then was launched in late August. So I think it's fair to say that most of the challenges that the team identified were then with regards to COVID-19. Barry, Mike and the team engaged extensively with all areas of the business to see what sort of challenges there were, both during COVID and prior, so that they could explore all avenues with startups. And from that, 26 challenges were highlighted for the lab. And then they were used to engage with startup communities across the globe, as well as universities in Wales and local tech hubs. There were over 100 applications from across the world, and 30 of those were shortlisted, and they pitched at the end of July. And from that, 10 companies have been selected to join the programme. These 3 slides I'm going to go through, well, I'm not going to go through now. These 3 slides show the 10 companies that comprise cohort 2. So 3 of them there, another 4 of them there, and the final 3 there. So just to reiterate then, so the participants will collaborate with mentors across the innovation sector and Transport for Wales Rail. That expertise will hopefully help the startup refine and develop a product fit for purpose for the rail industry, and then they'll make a pitch to decision makers in TFW Rail. Successful pitches will be awarded a contract of work to fund the remainder of the project and produce a product or service that has a real world impact, as I've just talked about. The latest lab launched on the 26th of August, and the demo day will be in October. If you go to the website, which is on the next slide, so the emboldened, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but the last of the 3 top ones, tfwlab.wales, is the link to that particular website. There are some other links there for our website and the Rail Services website. If you were to go to that website now, I think you can record some interest, but actually, as I said, the latest cohort is closed. So if you've registered interest, the team will be in touch in due course. Just to build on the wider agenda in terms of our procurement, we use the Sell to Wales website for more general procurement opportunities. So if you're not registered with that and you're interested in working with Transport for Wales in a more general sense, then actually it's worth registering there. And actually, a lot of the Wales local authority and local and public sector organisations in Wales will use that website too. So register there if you're not registered already. I'm happy to take any questions now, and I will be joining the panel later too.
Lovely, thank you, Jeff. It's absolutely fantastic just to see a really easy way to actually engage with you. Like, this is what you have to do. It's just fantastic. It's very refreshing. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks to the team on that, Barry and Mike, etc.
So there's a quick poll come up there. If anybody would like to be put in contact with Jeff, please just complete that poll that's just flashed up there. Okay, it doesn't look like we've got any questions. So obviously you covered everything perfectly, Jeff. Jeff is joining us for the panel discussion. So I'd like now to move on to Dr. Lingshan Li, who is the Smart Infrastructure Lead for the Innovation Hub at Oxfordshire County Council.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introduction, Rebecca, and thanks for the invitation by CPC. My name is Lingshan Li, or Ling Li. I'm the Smart Infrastructure Lead at Oxfordshire County Council, and today I'm very pleased to talk about OCC and our Innovation Centre, and also spending some time going through some of our projects we're doing in the past on ongoing projects in a specific area of application, road safety or travel safety. Of course, this is just a small area of the application or projects we are trialing or delivering, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of the types of projects, innovation and partnership we have at OCC. Hopefully that generates some conversations and thoughts about future collaborations. So without further ado, I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but Ogden County Council, we deliver key services, including highways or maintaining roads, waste management, etc. And we serve over 600,000 people and are growing very fastly. The Innovation Hub was set up a few years ago with the aim of helping or supporting the technology ecosystems to trial innovative technologies to transform or change the status quo, change the way we deliver those key services for our residents. And we have been very successful in securing fundings for private sectors and academic partners. We have in the past, either through internal fundings or external, like Innovate UK or DFT fundings, or even European fundings like Horizon 2020. So the aim of doing that is not just providing an environment, a living lab environment to test and trial those technologies, but also help expand the footprint of some of the SMEs or companies in the markets, or bring the products closer to the markets. And our areas of focus include connected autonomous vehicles and drones or UAVs, electrical vehicles, green travel, active travel, and public health. So perhaps to highlight a little bit about our CAF team, and now called Future Mobility, when it was established a few years ago, it was called CAF team, because at the time the focus was pretty much on CAV, connected autonomous vehicles. And we've been very active in training CAV technologies. I think to date, we've been part of 16 CAV projects, and the members of the team being very active in contributing to the standardization of CAV, like BSI Pass. But over the years, because we're quite successful, and now we've expanded our remit to pretty much all aspects of future mobility or smart mobility, including integration of technologies into this UTMC or network management, smart infrastructure, simulation and modeling, and also mobility as a service solution. So that's pretty much it about the overall introduction. I want to spend a little bit of time to go through some of the projects in the area of making our future travel safer. And because of the number of projects that we've been part of or delivering, it's impossible to cover those, even on a high level today in such a short amount of time. So I thought, why not just give you some real examples of some of these projects. I'm not going to go through all of them today, I don't think so, but happy to revisit them later. And of course, the slides will be shared to you guys. If you have any questions for any of those areas, please, by all means, email me or talk to me. So I think there's a lot of smart technologies addressing the aim of making the roads safer, and that including smart data. Data is underpinning elements of pretty much everything smart, and smart monitoring refers to the technologies to enhance our ability to monitor or manage our road assets. And also, of course, there's smart infrastructure, roadside infrastructure to benefit not just the road users, but also the transport authorities. And the smart vehicles, not necessarily limited to CAV, but we are also trying to apply some quick fixes or quick wins to equip our existing vehicles with smart devices to make them safer, make driving safer. So one of the projects we are doing at the moment is partly funded by Innovate UK, and is led by a consortium, led by a Ford-led consortium. The idea of this project is to explore using data to drive a data-led approach to predict future road accident hotspots. And the data we investigate within this project, including floating vehicle data or connected vehicle data, and roadside smart sensors, traffic management data, which is the UTMC data, for example, roadworks, incidents, parking data owned by the council. And we're also combine historical accident data from Stats19, for example, and some crowdsourced data from cycling apps or various websites publicly accessible. And combining those data and feeding those data into this computer vision, these machine learning algorithms, and that would lead to insights, not just to predict the hotspots for accidents, but also reveal some of the hidden root causes for those accidents. And that is very useful, actionable insights for traffic authorities. And also that information can be communicated to road users to avoid collisions or accidents in the future. As I mentioned, smart sensors or smart roadside sensors at OCC, we have trialed and installed quite a lot of sensors to help manage the rail networks, including Roadside Lab sensors. We have 100 of them across the county. With the built-in computer vision technology, it can automatically classify the types of road users and detect the speed and path or tracks of those vehicles, which is very useful information for us to understand the use of our networks. And there's air quality sensors where we installed on our fleet vehicles and also on the roadside infrastructure, street lights, etc., which provides this information for us to connect the impact of traffic and air condition qualities. And the mobile app mapping is another area where we're actively involved with. And this is quite important and quite promising because the safety critical assets is very important to maintain a safe driving environment or safe road using environments, including road markings, speed limit signs, and potholes, standing water, and maintaining a good maintenance of those conditions is very important to make the driving environment safer. And the recent emerging technologies utilizing LiDAR, telematics, or floating vehicle data, and of course camera make that possible. And we've delivered quite a few trials technologies in the past in this area. Mobile Eye and Ordnance partnered with us, training high definition mobile mapping based on camera data. And another project is called CAVLA, so Carve LiDAR for Roads, as the name suggests. This project investigates using LiDAR data, point cloud data, to inspect road street furnitures or road signs, etc. And this project is again utilizing Mobile Eye's smart systems to use computer vision to automatically detect hazard on the road and provides the warnings to the drivers to avoid collisions. And of course, another very important area that we focus on is roadside infrastructure, V2X or DSRC units. That is going to be very important in the future, especially with more and more connected vehicles becoming smarter in the future and more connected. And this roadside infrastructure would pretty much enable the vehicles to have extended vision with more intelligence that will make, again, the road much safer. So finally, my last slide is a couple of examples of opportunities of collaborations and funding. Multi-CAF project is a large project, a program we are part of, and that is based in the south of Oxfordshire. We're trying to build a smart corridor between the Milton Business Park and Decourt Rail Station, and also linking to the future Garden Village, as is a very important corridor. We were trialing different modes of autonomous vehicles and deliver a future mass solution. And we're looking at what's the best smart solutions to integrate into this corridor. Similarly, at A40 corridor linking Whitney to Oxford, historically this is notorious in terms of traffic congestion. And with the growing of population and new programs, housing programs, this traffic congestion problem is only going to get worse. So we are also seeking smart solutions or smart technologies to help us address this issue and also future-proof our infrastructure. So that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you have questions now or later, we're very happy to.
Lovely, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. That's really, really helpful. It's good to see what sort of projects you guys are working on, and if anyone has any interesting technology that might tie in with those projects, then please do get in touch. Nick, are you putting up a poll? There we go. So please complete that if you'd like to get in touch with Dr. Lee. Okay, so if it's all right, we do have, actually, I'll tell you what, we do have a couple of very, very, very quick questions, if that's okay. So the first one's from Adam. Oh no, there's three questions. Does Oxford have access to good comprehensive connected car data, as far as you're aware?
Yes, I do. For example, the DDRST project enable us to have access to, I think it's over 700 connected vehicle, but it's forward vehicle data. But I think at least 300 of them, are based around Oxfordshire, and also we connect our fleet vehicles, operational vehicles, with telematic or connected or smart devices. And that does provide a comprehensive database that we can leverage.
Fantastic, thank you. Another question from Adam. Do you know if there are plans to allow e-scooters in Oxford?
I'm probably not the best person to answer about the policy or regulation around that, or plans around that. But I'm happy to take that question to the right person and get back to Adam later.
Thank you so much. And from Canavs, he says, does Oxfordshire County Council manage traffic infrastructure like signals, etc.?
Yes. So as a duty of the County Council, we do manage our road traffic network, that including the traffic infrastructure, so like traffic signals.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So we will move on now. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. I think we were supposed to be joined by Ben from KPMG. Ben, are you with us?
I am, yes.
Oh,
indeed.
hi.
Hello.
Fantastic. Hello,
Sorry,
how are you, Ben?
I do apologise. I was hoping to join for the whole session, and the spending review, as some will know in the public sector, has somewhat curtailed a lot of availability. I'm well, thank you. It's nice to join you.
Great, thank you so much for being here. So yeah, we're delighted to have Ben with us. So Ben works for KPMG, obviously not a local authority, but Ben has extensive experience conducting projects for local authorities or working directly with local authorities. So I thought it'd be really helpful to invite Ben to talk about some of his experiences. So Ben officially is works in the Infrastructure Advisory and Future Mobility team, and he actually leads that function at KPMG. So Ben, I will pass over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's great. So yes, for those who don't know me, I'm a director in our infrastructure group and lead the future mobility team. We have 20 people working extensively across public and private sector, advising on all elements of future mobility, from digitalisation to decarbonisation, through to regulatory and policy change with government. And as Rebecca said, we've done a lot of work with local and regional and subnational and government authorities with respect to everything from innovation projects all the way through to large scale delivery programs. And a good example of that is ongoing work with Transport for the West Midlands and West Midlands 5G on the 5G innovation testbed, but also with people like Transport Scotland on their zero emission mobility strategy and programme. I think from my perspective, I'm sorry I don't have slides today, but I will run through some thoughts, and very happy to share materials afterwards. I wanted to break this conversation down into three key areas. The first one is around where the opportunities actually lie for SMEs in the innovation space. The second one is some thoughts around products and your sales strategy, your go-to-market strategy. And the third one is really what capabilities you as a business need to be successful in this market. So I will start by saying it's never really been a better time for UK-based SMEs to be engaging with government. As part of our Building Back Better number 10 sort of strategic priority, we are looking to grow UK businesses even more so than we were pre-COVID. This is about us building economic growth and building a powerhouse of capability within the UK, both to solve and to serve our challenges here in the UK, but also to create those export opportunities. And it won't surprise you to hear that if you look at the sort of government priorities, there are three key ones. Obviously, green recovery is a key one of those, levelling up and building back better. So levelling up is around making sure we've got devolution of funding and making sure that we are delivering innovation and enhancements across the country, which is also meaning that we're starting to see a lot more focus on how do we get funding out to combined authorities. You've got obviously the future transport zones, which is great, and that's a good policy test bed. We're actually wanting to see how we do things like level up, payments level up, decarbonisation initiatives across the country. Obviously, green recovery is a key part of this. It's around, in the mobility space, getting people to move to active, shared and green mobility. And there's business cases that go into government that tick those three boxes are getting traction and making progress. And that should be an indicator to you as the SME community about the key focus areas that we're going to see more and more innovation projects come through. And I think the Building Back Better is really around how do we make sure that we are creating sustainable economic growth, that we're not just investing in things for short-term gain, but for the 5, 10, 15-year gain. And certainly I'm starting to see a lot more in the treasury space around local authorities and combined authorities having to put in, how do we make sure that we don't just run innovation projects that deliver short-term gain and a good test bed, but actually scale and deliver long-term sustainable benefit. So it's something for you as the SME community to think about in terms of when you're making those pitches, when you're going to either the informal or the formal procurement processes. How do you demonstrate that you're able to take your concept and scale it out and then deliver that long-term sustainable benefit? So great that it's a great time to be engaging in the market, but I suppose the question is, who do you engage and in what context? You've obviously heard from Jeff and from Dr. Ling and this morning around their initiatives. I suppose what we're seeing in the local authority space is obviously there is increased focus on how do you use innovation to address some of these key challenges, whether that be getting more people onto rail by thinking about the parking issues. But I think the complexity and the confusion for the SME market is how do you actually engage in those discussions? We're seeing obviously the traditional procurement routes still very much being used in terms of frameworks, in terms of OJUs, and it's really important to make sure that you as an SME have the capability to engage in those. But we're also starting to see with the likes of Transport for London and hopefully soon TFN engage in more I suppose innovative procurement routes, so things like Regulation 31, where you're able to take forward a number of different innovators through a process and fund parts of that process to enable innovators to go through the proof of concept and the trial phases. So Regulation 31 is quite a novel way of engaging in innovation projects, but it's certainly something we're seeing more and more interest in, and it's something that I'd encourage you as the SME community to start thinking about how might you engage in that kind of procurement process. I think the other thing is partnering, and we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years around Innovate UK grants and collaborations between local authorities and SIs and SMEs and the innovator communities typically I've heard a number of SMEs come to me and say, well, by the time we knew about it, the consortia had already been formed. And that's a common bit of feedback. What I would say to you as a community is that there's a reason for that. People have been really proactive and engaged with the likes of Innovate UK and the accelerator with Faraday grants, etc., and really understood what's coming down the pipeline so that they can engage with local authorities and other partners to understand where the opportunities might lie, and proactively engage in discussions around, can we be part of your consortia if more grant funding becomes available. And hopefully Jeff and Dr. Ling would agree that many local authorities are really actively chasing this innovation funding from government. What was one point I suppose to recognise there, which is that all local authorities and government are resource constrained, and so it is not simply a question of you saying, I would like to be part of this consortia, please pick me. It's actually, how can I help you as a local authority to make that bid into government? How can I support you, recognising the resource constraints, to bid for that funding and be successful in securing it? So that's some of the key considerations with engaging with local authorities. The really primary one I would say, and I see this time and time again, is really make sure you've understood the objectives in that local region and with that local authority. It's all, and we'll come on to the products in a bit, but it's all well and good engaging and trying to cross-sell to lots of local authorities, but actually at the end of the day, a business case has to be made to draw down that funding and to create that funding pot. That business case is inherently linked to all of those local and regional policy objectives, and somehow your solution, your service has got to support the achievement of that, and it's got to do so in a way that is cost effective and provides value for money. So really understanding those local policy objectives is not just the three big ones we talked about earlier. There will be local issues, local challenges that are set out in things like LTPs, local transport plans, and wider things like connectivity strategies. So make sure that you've really read those, understood those, and contextualize your offering. Just in terms of other opportunities, obviously more broadly, but we're starting to see flowing through. Obviously, arm's length bodies like National Network Rail and Highways England have designated funds for innovation, and these are quite chunky packages of money. So Highways England, in its second regulatory settlement, has got something 80 to 100 million pounds just for innovation pathfinders. A lot of that at the moment is being focused on decarbonisation and air quality, but we'll see more things coming through. So engaging with the AL, so understanding the ALB designated funds, what they've been set up for, what's going into that settlement is really important. And the other thing is the innovation pathfinders, part of wider programs. So if you take Highways England, for example, their CHARM traffic management program has had 3 innovation pathfinders as part of it. So it's really important to not only just to think about the innovation funding, but also the wider, larger, what you might assume to be traditional programs, to understand where innovation fits as part of those. Sort of 3 other areas I'd encourage you to look at in terms of the opportunities. Accelerators and testbeds, it goes without saying, and I won't focus on that. But also we're starting to see things like trade missions appear with government. So DIT launched its Smart Cities trade mission only yesterday, with the Minister making a presentation, and they're taking forward some 34 SMEs from the Smart Cities community to trade mission to Asia. But actually the DIT, as part of that, has been working to create a network of SMEs in the Smart Cities area industry, and actually engaging with organisations on those trade missions. Yes, they might be in other parts of the world, but actually that gives you a benefit of getting transparency of what's happening in the market and understanding of where some of those wider opportunities might lie. And then the final area in terms of opportunities, and I've reinforced this quite a lot, is partnerships. It's really uncommon for me to see a sole supplier contract these days, and typically you need partnerships to augment and fuse capabilities, but also to de-risk it. So having the relationships with professional services companies like ourselves, PA, Deloitte, etc., having relationships with SIs who will fuse capabilities to deliver solutions, and also the traditional, what you might see as the larger COTS vendors, commercial off-the-shelf vendors, is really important. Most people, most SMEs are concerned about the IP considerations and whether there's a risk of the larger vendors and SIs stealing IP and progressing their own solutions. Actually, what I would say is that more and more procurements of traditional programs are asking for those SIs, for our large professional services companies, to bring in SMEs and to grow SME communities. So actually, it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we've got those supply chain relationships, we've got those capabilities in our back pocket. So yes, actually, we've got 5 or 6 SMEs who could support us with that. It helps us score procurement points, and actually it provides a route to market for yourselves. Moving on to products. Again, I've run a number of innovation programs or written business cases in this space. A perennial problem I still see is solutions looking for problems, and that doesn't go, that won't be a surprise to you. What's really important, and it goes back to my point about objectives for the local authorities, is what specific problem does your solution or your service solve? And why is it unique? Why is it better than other things? Does it provide better long-term sustainability or value for money? Does it provide wider customer benefits? Do you really understand what the key benefits categories that business cases for these type of solutions will be targeted at, and how does your solution address those? The other issue I sort of perennially see is around SMEs thinking their product is the right answer and the customer's not really understood the problem. And I'm going to be a bit blunt and say, actually, in a number of cases I've seen SMEs say, well, actually, the local authority, they don't really specialize in this area, they don't understand it well enough, our product is exactly what they need, we understand it a lot better than they do. Actually, I think it's quite an arrogant way of thinking about it, and actually, to release funding in a local authority situation, you've got to have gone through the problem definition, the business case development. So put trust in the customer and actually work with them as an intelligent customer. Help guide them, don't just assume yours is the right answer. And the other issue is being inflexible on IP. Now, we all know IP is a perennial issue, and with apologies to my government colleagues here, there are procurements and commercial teams who have a very narrow view on IP, which is we want everything. Actually, that's not the right way to go either. But we need to have a sensible conversation about IP and say, well, what's core IP? What's background IP to our product that we're not going to give away? And there's a reason for that. You want us to maintain that and innovate and build out. But what's the foreground IP for that project we're prepared to negotiate on? So don't just say no to it. And likewise, for the local authority colleagues, there needs to be some pragmatism in that space. And then I suppose finally, just before we get into questions, in terms of capabilities for your own businesses, and I do have a slide on this, which I'll share around later, but getting the basics right is really, really important. Having your effective management processes and governance in your business are an important component to this, and they provide the baseline to demonstrate to your clients that you can work with them and do so successfully. So at a minimum, when you're working with government, you will have to demonstrate compliance to ISO 27001 from an information security perspective. It will be beneficial if you could demonstrate compliance to ISO 9001, which is the quality standard, especially in the digital space, demonstrating that you can work within government digital services, government digital standards guidelines, and work within the agile development model. Within understanding procurement processes and being able to execute seamlessly and consistently within public sector procurement processes. They are formulaic, and you might look at them and go, God, that's a real headache. But actually, after a while, once you've got that mechanism of doing it, the qualification process, the clarification question process, the getting to know how to answer the questions, and making sure that you really understood the quality criteria, technical cost criteria, and building your solution around that. And then in terms of just being on the right frameworks as well, we talked about things like Regulation 31 and things that are ex-ante frameworks earlier, but actually frameworks are still a really important part of this. So really understanding what the frameworks are that are coming out, engaging with people like Crown Commercial, and also with wider combined authorities. And then just as an administrative point, having the right CPV code in your business description is really important, because quite often we will go out, and when we're retained by our clients to go and help them out with procurement processes, we will look for businesses to engage and invite to participate based on CPV codes. So getting the basics right is really important. I think I'm going to very rapidly run out of my 10 minutes, so I'll just take a breather there and ask if there are any questions, and very happy to take those.
Yeah, I just had one. Sorry, what was that last point? Was it CPV code?
Yeah, so CPV code is what is used in procurement to look at industry classifications and business classifications.
Oh, I see. Right, I got you. Thank you. I was thinking, I don't know what that means, and I'm sure there's probably some other people who don't understand either. Ben, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was literally there just typing out everything you were saying. It was so invaluable. Please do fill out the poll if you'd like to be put in touch with Ben. I think we've got you until 11:30, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, so flying visit today. No,
that's absolutely fine. I'm sure we're going to have quite a lot of questions for you, because that was just a ton of amazing, useful points. So if we could launch straight into our panel discussion now, that would be really good. So but before we do, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers for sharing those really valuable insights. It's great to hear directly from the horse's mouth. This is what our challenges are, and this is how you can engage with us. So before we kind of kick off, I just wanted to introduce someone who's very kindly agreed to join our panel, Lawrence Oakes-Ash, who is the CEO of City Science. So we're really delighted to have Lawrence with us today. Lawrence, before we sort of launch into the panel, would you mind just saying a few words about City Science and the work that you do?
Yeah, so I'm Lawrence Oakes-Ash, CEO of City Science. So we started in 2015. As a company, we started with a simple question, which was, how do you take a city to zero carbon? So your average city, a third of the energy use is in our homes, domestic properties, a third of it's in commercial properties, and the rest is in mobility, so moving people around. So we have products that serve each of those different needs, analytical products, really trying to help people understand how they can kind of decarbonise. I guess I'm representing the SMEs on the panel, so I've got a lot of experience and scars from procurement and trying to engage. So very excited about the discussion.
Thank you. Okay, so if I could just possibly begin. So we do have a couple of questions that are just from left over from the speakers slot. So we have a question from Christopher Perry for John, please. What has happened to the TFWM Transport Innovation Framework following the Supplier Day on the 24th of February?
I did put a response in the chat, but I guess.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, you have. Sorry, I didn't notice that. No problem. Yeah, that's fine, John. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Okay, another one for you, John, please, from Robin. So he says he's working with the World Economic Forum on their Build Back Better initiative, and they're quite interested in Robin's COVID-free mobility solution, and he was just wondering if you're aware of the initiative.
Briefly, I think I've heard it mentioned by someone else. I did say to Robin, just get in touch, maybe interesting to find out a bit more about what they're doing.
Lovely, thank you. And that looks like that's it there. So Lewis, hi Lewis, hope you're well. So he has a question for Ben. He says, an excellent session. Can you build on Regulation 31? So expand on that a bit, I think.
Oh, well, so Regulation 31 is part of the ODU procurement regulations, and effectively it is an innovation competition. So it enables local authority to fund the development of multiple POCs and take through more than one potential provider to address an innovation problem. So if you look at, I'll use Transport for London as an example because they've already they're doing this with their freight lab. Sorry, with their roads problem, but this is a very broad problem to start with, which was, please help us to make London's roads safer, especially around roadworks. So that was the big broad brush innovation problem. And then you set evaluation criteria to help guide the solutions effectively to address things that where you've got a challenge where there's no COTS product in the market to address it. So it enables innovators to come back and say, I've got a solution, or I can work with others to provide a solution that's not already available in the market. And it's at a low TRL level. So typically sort of TRL 3 to, well, probably 2 to 6 roughly. And to work through how that solution would be applied to that problem statement and the specific context, but in a way that is also funded, and then to take it through to a demonstrator, at which point the local authority would then have to build a business case around it and say, yes, actually we think this is achievable, scalable out to a solution, and we've done the proof of concept and the demonstrator to understand the costs, the benefits, and we can then actually build a business case around it. And it's effectively enabling LA's local authorities to work with partners to build the evidence base for the business case, but by doing so through a POC and demonstrator process. It's not used commonly. In fact, I think your TfL's obviously, Rakesh and his team have done it a couple of times now. We're supporting TFN with preparing for a similar exercise, which all being well should be out in the next sort of 6 weeks or so. And the reason for that is that it does take, because it's a broad challenge statement, it's more difficult to build the evaluation criteria around it and do so in a way that this means there's equitable moderation. Typically you're looking in this area for budgets. Budgets are reasonably small, they're typically sub 1 million, but it enables, as I said, it enables multiple suppliers to be taken through, and they might be awarded 15,000, 50,000, 100,000 to work through. It also enables down selection, so there's typically 2 phases. So you end up with phase 1, which is you might pay, or it might be unfunded, or you might provide 5,000 to 10,000 to after supply qualification to get down to 3 or 4 that you take through then to a wider POC development.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks, Ben. I just had a question. So you mentioned partnerships, which is something that obviously the Catapult is very focused on. How would you recommend, if somebody's kind of working in a quite, singular way on the sort of tech development side of something really great at the development, how do they actually then go out and go about finding a partner, and how do they know what it is that they want that partner to contribute to their innovation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when I talk about partnerships in this space, I think clearly networks like CPC provide are really invaluable, and the DIT is providing for the export side. There's, I guess, there's bilateral partnerships and peer-to-peer, where you're looking to understand, you're looking across the market and saying, well, actually, where can I augment with other things? So as an example, we're working with I suppose a medium-sized business now, EatoWell from Cambridge, but we brought them in with KPMG to deliver the bus open data service for government. But they are quite clear on the bounds of where their core product set is and their USP, where they want to do other wider things, and they think their core product set can support it, at least partially. They are looking for other partners there to say, well, actually, we can do that bit of it, you can do that bit of it, let's come together. But it's always about focusing on the problem. So there's the bilateral solutions where you're looking across the market and saying, okay, where can 1 and 1 equal 3? And then there's the partnerships with the larger companies like us and the SIs. I think there you've got to take a bit more of a broad brush approach, which is we think we've got something that is interesting. Now, typically we will, as big businesses and the way my team operates, we'll be focused on long-term opportunities with our clients. So be looking 6 months, 12 months ahead in some of the larger programs that are going to be delivered, some of the larger policy positions and objectives that need to be delivered. So small SMEs need to think around those larger, longer term opportunities, 6 to 12 months out, and engage with the professional services firms and say, look, first of all, are you targeting something in this space? If so, we think we've got something that might be helpful for you. So, you know, if that's going to be, for example, around, I'm just thinking, you know, there's long-term programs within Transport Scotland for they're coming out to procurement for their operational technology framework, and there's innovation components in that. You know, engaging with the engineering firms and or professional services firms in that space and saying, we know there's an innovation component in there, we think they've got something that's relevant, we'd like to engage with you on that basis.
Brilliant, thank you.
I'd just like to can I come in on just on the,
of course, absolutely,
the challenge from that, because I think partnerships obviously are very important, but I think it's really important as well for the SME to establish its position in the market, because you know, if you're unknown to the end customer, you'll also be unknown to the partner. And I think it is obviously a commercial market out there, and I think that the partners can take advantage of SMEs in some certain circumstances, especially where the SME wants to, you know, get a case study with an end customer. So we had an example where we had a fantastic proposition with a partner. We won in the procurement. We were top on quality. We had gone in just saying we want to win this, so we'll basically give it to you for free to win. But the partner, essentially, we lost on cost because the partner had added in a management fee. So you've got to be careful with the people you're working with, and you know, try and get those direct contracts as well, just so that you establish yourself in the marketplace.
Yeah, I wonder if actually. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jeff. Go on.
Well, so I was just going to say, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because actually, a key thing I think really came over to me from Ben's excellent presentation is understanding the view from the potential customers' point and the challenge that they see. So in terms of developing your partnerships, it needs to be wrapped around that. It needs to be wrapped around the trust piece. It needs to be wrapped around, well, actually, are there common problems across the sector that we can work together on? And the other thing I would say, really, I mean, I used to work in one of the larger consultants, and it was challenging enough bidding in that where you've got a bidding team, you've got, you know, you're used to doing pre-qualifications, etc., etc. Actually, some of this does need some pretty hard work to get there, and you may not be successful first time. Just because you're not successful first time doesn't mean to say your proposition is not good. There's some learning to take place. So you need to be, you know, I hesitate to use the terminology about in it for the long haul, but you do need to have a strategic intent on these things.
Yeah, Lawrence, I wonder if it would be all right. I mean, you touched on, you know, you've had some painful experiences. Could you maybe talk us through some of those and how you perhaps overcame them?
I think to Jeff's point, a lot of it is about tenacity and keeping going. So, you know, we've been through periods where we've lost a lot in a row. So we went through a period where we lost 10 in a row. You know, you've got to kind of keep going, keep learning, but you've also got to be, if you're going off the procurement route, you've got to have that in the forefront of your mind, that it is going to be a long process for you to learn and get to the position where you can compete against established teams. I think the key thing is about understanding what differentiates you and putting that front and center, because I think that there are a lot of public sector buyers out there who are frustrated with procurement system, frustrated with their existing customers. And that's where SMEs can really make a difference. I think the challenge for SMEs, always the chicken and egg problem, is case studies, because the way that procurement's set up is it's very much focused on have you got all of the case studies. And that's where pilots, I think more than one pilot, you know, you need to have a bank of pilots in a particular niche to say, we do have these case studies doing the same thing over and over again to help you kind of get that track record, which is going to be key, but then differentiate yourself from the fact that you are an SME.
And what advice would you perhaps give to pre-revenue startups who are very much at the development kind of feasibility stage of the technology, who perhaps aren't at a point where they can undertake a traditional procurement process?
I think that that's always obviously a challenging time and a challenging position to be in. I think the key thing is, I mean, I think Innovate UK, the competitions are fantastic. I think SBRIs are also fantastic. You know, whilst an SBRI might be as hard, you know, you might have to spend a week putting an application together. The benefits that an SBRI can give you is it's 100% funded. You can actually build on that as a case study as well. And just like the Regulation 31 types of procurement, it can often lead into a second phase. So I'd definitely take the time, you know, grab time when you've got it to actually apply for those SBRIs and innovation funding from Innovate UK. Maybe avoid the smart grants because they're very competitive, but if you can fit what you're trying to do into one of the more niche ones, then you're going to have a higher chance of success. And partnerships will also help you score well. So having a partnership with a university helps.
Or maybe a Catapult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's so. One of the key challenges for pre-revenue, in my experience, is that the SQs, the supply qualification or PQQ process, can typically exclude pre-revenue companies because it will look at financial performance and the risk of financial distress. And the same thing goes for KPMG. I'll be honest. You know, we have to do supply due diligence for everyone we on board, and if it comes back with a pre-revenue position, there's always a bit of nervousness. So I suppose the key thing there is to have a good story around how you will manage the risk on behalf of your partner, whether that be your customer or be your partner. And that's, you know, for me, it's about absent the financial backing. Sorry, I say financial, you might have financial backing, but absent the revenues, how do you demonstrate your commitment, long-term commitment to that project?
Can I come in here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I worked at pre-revenue startups, so I kind of got a bit of thoughts on it as well. I think that I agree. The formal procurements often become challenging, and I think what we need to do, and when we're trying to do a bit more, is for pre-revenue type things, it's much easier to get smaller procurements through procurement processes without it being as less structured. So a lot of the things around experience, costs, etc., are less of a problem if it's a smaller pilot. So I think that as authorities, what we need to do is we need to do more smaller initiatives that allow SMEs to get involved, and I know there's initiatives, I know TFL, that's one of the things they look at, is trying to break stuff down, because typically public sector we do one mega £1 million contract that for lots of partners, where actually if we can break it down and we say, there's different elements of it, those different elements then become easier to actually engage with SMEs. And this is also the point I was making, that come and talk to us, because actually if you've got a good idea and you want to trial it, we can then work out, well, how do we fit that into our plans, our programs, etc. It's also another thing that I think Ben hasn't mentioned. There's dynamic purchasing systems that are a lot more flexible than typical procurements, and you can get onto them fairly straightforward. and there's a few, like something like there's one, Crown Commercial has one called Spark, which I think is around a lot of technology schemes. It doesn't really get you anything by being on it, but it does allow, so as us as a local authority, what we can do is anyone on the dynamic purchasing system we can go to with a mini competition. And the advantage for SMEs, etc., is that a dynamic purchasing system you can apply to join it any time. So it's not often. Sometimes the problem with frameworks is if you miss it, you've missed it. Whereas these you can join in. We're still it's one of the things we've looked at. We haven't really utilised yet, but these are just some ideas.
I think that another way to kind of for pre-revenue startups to provide assurance or reassurance to your potential customers is by providing or obtaining a certain level of technical validity of your innovation. So whether it's by working with a Catapult, for example, we have solutions architects, for example, who can sort of help you go through your pitch deck and help analyze your technology to work out whether or not they feel, using their market knowledge, it has the potential to achieve market traction in its intended market. So I think before you've even started selling it, we have enough, or similar organizations have enough knowledge of the market to be able to ascertain fairly reasonably whether or not the technology is likely to succeed or not. So even before you've started selling it, we can provide some form of, assurance or reassurance on that aspect.
Could I just make a comment? So there's been some really great innovation shared today by the various contributors, and actually some of it's of interest to our organisation. I guess one of the things I've seen in the past is that we've had approaches from organisations and they've been able to come along and say, we've tested this somewhere else and here it is great, and it's the procurement or the opportunity has gone to a certain point and then it's like, what next? And we can't easily engage with it and go, okay, we'll buy that. So we've almost got to go back to square one and go through the whole thing again. And I just wonder, as organisations, whether there's an opportunity for us to do more sort of share. We'd have to understand with our procurement teams, but if it lands well here, then actually it's easier for it to be deployed over there in a better way.
I certainly think that one of the gaps in kind of the funding stages is in that once you've done a pilot, how you then get it to repeatability. So all of the funding that's out there at the moment is very much for that first trial, rather than from that, okay, you've done it once, now let's do it twice, let's do it 3 times. So we suffer from that problem a lot, where we've got something which is really great, but then the funding dies. So I think one of the key things I think we need to think about collectively as a country is how we pull through these pilots and make sure they sustain.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to just jump in. Ben has to leave us now, unfortunately. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. And we obviously asked everyone to complete a poll as to who wants to get in touch with you. So we will follow that up afterwards. Thanks, Ben.
I'm conscious of there's a question on the chat that I thought might be worth trying to answer.
Excellent, thank you.
It's on the threshold question, it tends to vary between authorities. The hard limit is the ODU threshold, which I think is about 190,000. So anything over 190,000 would need to go for a full EU compliant procurement process, although there's variations on that. So like for instance, the innovation Sector 31 that Ben talked about would meet those requirements. I think for us as TFWM, I think I can do up to 50,000 as free quotes, for instance, so that there is flexibility, and it ultimately depends on where each authority set those limits. Do you want to talk about G-Cloud as well?
If that's okay, if you wouldn't mind, very briefly.
Yes. So we have used G-Cloud actually. So we've used G-Cloud both for software packages and procurement services. I think sometimes the challenge with G-Cloud is getting, I suppose, if you're an SME, is getting yourself onto G-Cloud in a way that you are seen to be specific enough for the service you provide, I guess is the advice I would say. Because what if, as a buyer, how we use G-Cloud is we need to do a search, and then what effectively we shortlist off that list of people that come up. Now, depending on what type of thing we're looking for, we could have quite a long list. So G-Cloud is great when we're after something that's quite specific, and we can say, yep, these are the only supplier that does this, because or there's only a handful of suppliers. It becomes more challenging to us when it's a more of a generic service, because then we're effectively almost going for as complicated a process as a tendering process. I think one of the things with G-Cloud, I'm sorry, it varies by authority as well. So we as TFW, we've done it, we've used it, our procurement's very comfortable with using it. I think sometimes with other authorities, it's probably getting their procurement over the barrier of the first time they use it.
Yeah, good point. Thanks a lot, John. Okay, so we're a little bit running late for networking. So what I just wanted to do before we sort of wrap up, if that's okay. Thank you to everyone who asked questions for our panel, and in a moment you'll have chance to join one of our networking rooms, and then we can have a sort of more informal chat. But before this, can I just draw your attention to a few things that we've got coming up? We have an excellent webinar program here at the Catapult. So the first exciting program we've got, I just wanted to talk about, is our HS2 accelerator. We're launching cohort 2 of this program in November, and if you're interested at all in applying, we have an application support webinar that's taking place tomorrow. Overall, there are 2 challenges within the program. One is around ways of working, and the other is around improving stations experience. Deadlines for applications are Friday, the 18th of September. So please do join us tomorrow. And the other events coming up, we have our third Thursday events. No surprises being held on the third Thursday of this month, 17th September. For this, we'll be inviting Deborah Colville, who's the City Innovation Manager and Head of Smart Belfast Programme, to share her experiences in supporting Belfast in winning a city deal, and the progress the region has made since the deal was agreed. So please do join us for that. So again, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's participated in today's event, our speakers and attendees, and of course, as always, Nick, who is fantastic, and I really appreciate everything, Nick, thank you, and Stephen, of course. So for those of you who have expressed an interest in joining us for the networking, the link can be found in the chat box, so just click on that, and we will see you shortly.